problems followed right along, those same types of problems. And then in 2016, 2017, when I moved up to the high school, we started to feel this avalanche of anxiety with the young people, and it really hit an apex in 17, 18 with the suicide contagion of Stark County. It was the largest suicide contagion for our teens in the history of the United States. 13 students took their lives that year. 7 of them were sophomores. 6 were from Perry High School, where I live. And I don't want to say Perry High School because one was an 8th grader, but Perry Local Schools, where I live, and my sons were going to school. 2 of them were at my high school at Northwest. We had a double suicide there. So not only was it on my office desk, but my son, being a sophomore, was also experiencing it at the high school at Perry. So it was on my kitchen table as well. So I'm gonna pause there for a second. Those sophomores, 7 of which were sophomores during 17, 18 that took their lives, they were 6th graders back in 2012 when Instagram came on the scene. I talk about that timeline because it's important, because my son was a sophomore. Although he was in a group that was I want to say a healthy group, he was still carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders when he was coming home. So it was on my desk and on my kitchen table at home with my son Blake. I also want to say that my son Blake graduated in 2020. I'm just going to give you a little reference here. Those students who graduated 2017 and prior to that don't seem to have been impacted the way that our young people that graduated in 2018 and beyond have been impacted. And that's because we see this Instagram, which is the app that's most crippling our young ladies. So this is kind of what's brought me to this point, because after 2017, 2018, we started to do things differently at my high school, where we started to address some of these problems. We started putting Band-Aids on. We had the Stark MAR and the Mobile Crisis Unit, and we had hotlines, and we had parent education and student education. But what we were doing, we're putting Band-Aids on everything. It wasn't until about 2022 that we started to identify the real causes of this mental health disorder, and that is smartphones. I sometimes will say cell phones, but I really mean smartphones, and the students' addiction to that. So it's not only impacting their mental health, but it's also impacting their attention fragmentation. So, there it is. So when we talk about teen mental health, it's impacting everything we do. If you talk to a teacher, you talk to someone in education, you talk to a parent of a young teen who's got their cell phones, it's impacting everything. Their academics, it's impacting their resiliency, which is why we're here, their ability to bounce back, their problem solving, their attendance, it's impacting their attention span, concentration, suicide, dependability, maturity, their sleep. We'll talk about their sleep. Their extracurriculars, we see lower numbers in extracurriculars, their happiness. We know that students who spend 4 hours a day on their cell phones are 82% more likely to identify as unhappy. And for every hour added on to that, the intensity of their unhappiness also increases. So when you think about the number of hours that the average teen is now spending on their phone, which is 8.4 hours a day on their phones, you're talking about a full-time job. So 4 hours are going to make them identify as unhappy. Just imagine what 8.4, and if 8.4 is the average, that means kids are spending a whole lot more time on. There's a lot of kids spending a lot more time than just 8.4 hours. Their school spirit, their apathy, their motivation, and their relationships with their peers, their family, and their staff. It's impacting everything. And if you're a parent here of a young person, you've probably had that argument at the kitchen table, telling them to put their phone away, or them not wanting to get off their phone, and that sort of thing. But it's just not a U.S. problem either. Every first world country is having a problem with the mental health, whether or not it's over in England, or Australia, the United States. We're all facing the same thing. So if you take a look at this is the percentage of U.S. undergraduates diagnosed with mental health illness. They started tracking this particular study from the American College of Health Association, started tracking this in 2008. And you see, it starts off pretty even. But once we get to 2018, you see an increase in anxiety of 134% and an increase of depression by 106%. By the way, COVID gets a bad rap for a lot of things. COVID didn't cause this. A lot of people think, oh, well, COVID, because of this. This started long before COVID. 2017, 2018, the suicide contagion was 2 years before COVID. This started before. Now, was COVID an accelerant? It was, in the sense that it got kids on their phones all the time because everybody was inside. But this started long before that. So this was anxiety and depression. And then we talk about suicide from 2010, and it jumps up to 2020. Boys have an increase of 109%. Girls have suicides have risen 134%. Now you'll see boys are higher than girls because boys tend to have a higher success rate when they attempt. Girls, however, have more issues and have more signs and hurtful, they damage themselves or they hurt themselves more in terms of cutting and that sort of thing. I'm going to introduce you to a program that we want to start. It's called the BRIK program, Building Resilience in Kids. And what we're going to do is, it's a mind shift. It's a community action plan, and it takes the community, which is why you're here, so I appreciate that. But it's a community action plan that takes an entire community, because as teachers and administrators and school staff, we can only do so much. We only control those 7 hours when the schools are here. So when we talk about some of the things that I'm going to propose, it's a community action plan, and I believe that the Canton local community can wrap their arms around this situation. We can actually make a huge dent into what's going on with our students' mental health. But the team members, we're hoping to include, we do right now, myself, the administration, staff, board members, and this is where the community comes into play. Before we leave here, I'll be letting you know how you can get involved with this and get on a committee and help steer the ship, so to speak, and so we can write what's going on. But it is a community action plan, because it's going to take parents and grandparents and neighbors and school staff alike working together to solve this problem. Sure, we can take phones away. And from a school standpoint, discipline will go down. But the real reason we're doing this is for the mental health of our young people. We're trying to save them. So, parents and grandparents and community members, you're not imagining what's going on. We now have irrefutable evidence that social media and cell phones are damaging our kids. And you're not overreacting, and we're not alone in this. This is the community action plan that I'm talking about, and together we have the capability to help our young people. But it's going to take, and you'll hear me talk about this when we go over these 4 steps that I'm going to talk about. It takes a community. It can't be just the schools, and it can't be just one set of parents. It takes everyone. So what can we do? There are 4 steps that I'm going to run you through, and 3 of these steps I'm going to need your help on. And step 1. No smartphones before high school. Now, when I say a smartphone, I mean something that has internet capability. We're going to ask that you not give our young people a smartphone before the age of 14. Now, this is really tough, because we have just found out that 1 in every 4 8-year-olds now have a cell phone, have a smartphone. 1 in 4 of our 8-year-olds now have a cell phone with untethered access to the internet. Just imagine what our young kids, 8 years old, our boys, are accessing on their smartphones, because let's be honest, it's a great babysitting tool. I give my kid a phone, or I give them a tablet, and they're good. For like 2 hours, I get my stuff done. It's a great babysitter. But now we're finding out it ain't so great, all right? So we're asking you not to give your son or daughter a smartphone until they're 14. And see, this is the problem, is because by the time they're 8 years old, they're already asking you, Mom, Dad, can I get a smartphone? Mom, Dad, can I get a smartphone? Mom, Dad, can I get a smartphone? Everybody else has got one, Mom and Dad, and it's just non-stop, and they just keep hitting you and hitting you. And finally, most of us cave. By the way, I did. And by the way, my son Blake, who graduated in 2020 during the COVID shutdown and was a sophomore during the suicide contagion, we got him a smartphone when he was 12 years old. not knowing the damages of it. I didn't know what I was doing to him. We were happy that he was upstairs in his bedroom rather than running the streets like we did when we were younger, right? He's in such a better place. He's in such a better place. He's nice and safe. I'm as guilty as anybody. But we're going to ask that you not give them a smartphone until they're 14 and hold firm. Now, we do have some parents that are holding firm to this, but you are in the minority if you are holding firm. Like, listen, we're not giving you a smartphone. Most parents, they tend to cave for a multitude of reasons. Number one, we don't want our kid to be isolated. We don't want him to be alone, which is a real problem. You know, we don't want our young ladies not being able to socialize because they don't have a smartphone and everybody else does and everybody's on Snapchat. We don't like that as parents. Or, you know, that could be more damaging than anything. But what would happen if like half the class or your daughter or your son and all of his friends, because we all, let's take for example, if they play on a sports team, I'm with the parents all the time and we can collectively come together and say, listen, why don't we all band together and not get our kids a phone? And that way they're all in it together. So that argument like, oh, I'm the only one that doesn't have one. Well, you know, that doesn't hold weight then. Because they have a group of friends and all of the parents are banded together. Or if like half the class decides, that parents decide, we're not getting our kid a smartphone. We're just not. I just saw something right now that rotary telephones, and I can't say rotary telephones, but the phones that used to hang on the wall at the house, a landline, those are now coming back and parents are refusing to get their kid. Could you imagine? I just saw this today and I'm like, could you imagine if I put a landline in my house again? Because most people don't, how many of you have a landline still in your house? Really? That's awesome. Because we remember we had to stick with the cord and we'd go around the corner and shut the door and talk to our girlfriend or whatever. But those are coming back now because parents are saying, you know, we're not getting cell phones. Because a lot of times cell phones are the only phones that are in the house. So we're going to ask you to hold firm. Resist giving them a smartphone until they're 14. Step 2, no social media until 16. Now this is a challenging one because how do you keep kids off social media if they have a smartphone? Well, we know the importance, and I'll share with you the importance of keeping them off social media, but there's also ways that you can keep them off social media, like wait till 8th. It's a website, and I'll show you it up here. But there are step-by-step instructions on how you can set parameters on your child's cell phone, on their smartphone, so that they can't access the apps that they're not supposed to be accessing. And then they get really good, and then they try it, and then you have to make sure that you're checking it. But anyway, when we talk about no social media until 16, we're specifically talking about a few apps here. We're talking about Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, and also TikTok. So this is what I tell the kids. These companies are worth billions and billions of dollars. But yet, I've never had to pay for anything to get on Instagram or get on TikTok. I get on TikTok, I watch videos, and it doesn't cost me anything. Well, then how are they worth billions of dollars? They're telling our young people, and the adults for that matter, but it's telling our young people how to think, how to act, how to vote, what to buy. These companies are worth billions, and it's funny how the owners or the creators of these don't let their own kids on these social media sites. They don't, because they know the damaging effects that it has on them. They don't let kids on them. But for a bigger fact, we can't let our young people go through puberty with these social media apps. Now, it impacts boys and girls differently, all of it negative, but I'm gonna share with you that these social media apps, especially Instagram, it's crippling our young ladies. And for our boys, we call it failing the launch. They're not jumping into adulthood like we want them to. Now, let me pause there and say, not every kid is in a bad space. But I will tell you that if you have a son or daughter that happens to be in a good spot, you can ask them if they have a good friend that's not in a good spot, and they will say yes. They know somebody who's not in a good spot. So, what I want to share with you is, right on my next slide, is what it does to our young ladies and then what it's doing to our young men. For our young ladies, especially Instagram, this unrelenting comparison to perfectionism and having to be perfect. We just found out about a few weeks ago that if you are a young lady and you have Snapchat or you have Instagram and you take a selfie and you don't like that picture and you delete it and retake another one, your algorithm is set up. You're gonna start getting weight loss and beauty products for our young ladies. Are you kidding me? Now, if you think there are kids as young as 7 and 8 years old now getting smartphones, and your young lady is now wanting to post pictures, and every time that she deletes a picture and takes another one, that she's gonna start getting beauty products, and they all have this routine, and they put on makeup and weight loss. It's the relational aggression, the emotional contagion, and the sociogenic mental illness. How many of you have heard of TikTok Tourette's? TikTok Tourette's, it's rooted in anxiety with our young ladies, and they'll see something on TikTok, somebody with Tourette's, and they'll mimic it, and then they won't be able to control it. And this is very real. I had 2 of them at my old high school, where these young ladies would have seizures or these tics. Well, I should say this. They were minor tics, which then grew into more severe tics, which then jumped into seizures. All anxiety, and they'd have these seizures, and we'd never call a squad, because the emergency rooms and the doctors will tell you there's nothing we can do. It's not an epileptic seizure. It has to do with anxiety, and you just give them a safe space, and when they're done with their seizure, stand them up, get them back to class. What? It took me 6 months to come around to this. Just getting back to class. There's nothing you can do. And in the beginning, like, when's the last time that a kid had a seizure that I did not call a squad? I mean, that's teacher 101. Nope. So then we'd call the squad, we'd be talking to the parents would be like, don't send them to the hospital. What do you mean don't send them to the hospital? They're having a seizure, there's nothing they can do. And it happened again and again. And when a girl is having 14, 15 seizures a day, what are you gonna do, call the squad every day? So we put them in a safe space, they get back up. So then we started saying, oh, well, if it's 20 minutes, we'll call a squad. Well, then if it's 30 minutes, well, if it lasts for more than an hour, we're gonna call a squad. All from anxiety. And girls are much more subject to sexual predation and harassment. We think that keeping our kids at home and not letting them out is gonna make them safer. Where do you think all the predators are at? They're online. They're much more susceptible to it. And our young men, untethered access to porn. I started this and told you that 1 in every 4 kids now have a smartphone, and those boys. So just imagine being a boy. You're not gonna hit puberty for 3 or 4 more years, and you have untethered access to porn, and just not regular porn, violent porn, porn of all aspects that you and I probably have never seen on the internet because we're not on our phones digging into it. But yet we expect our boys to be normal after all of this. The graphic and violent death videos that they watch over and over again, video games, and it's okay if kids play video games, but if they're on them too much and they spend hours upon hours in their room and they're not getting out and they're not socializing, crypto investing, gambling. They have talked about gambling addiction with our young people and the fact that there's so many of our young men now that are filing bankruptcy by the time they hit 20 years old. And it's all resulting in our young men failing to launch from childhood to adulthood. They're finding more of our young men, not our young ladies. Our young ladies are finding go out, they get a job, or they go to college, or whatever. They're finding that our young men are stuck at home more now than they've ever been until they're 25, 26, 27, and they're still living at home because they're not launching. They're not out there socializing with their friends. They're stuck on their phones. So it's when we say that it's open season on our boys, that's what we're talking about. It's that failure to launch piece. Step 3, this is where we come into play. So this is another thing that I never expected to happen as fast as it has. The Ohio legislature has never moved as quickly as it has on this, on anything that I can ever remember. Both Republican and Democrats both agree. Schools cannot allow kids to have their phones. Remember back in 2012, kids used to show up with their smartphones and everybody was like, oh, this is going to be the greatest educational tool ever. We're going to let them use them in class. They're going to be able to use them for their education. And it's just going to be fantastic. And then they're like, they're being a little bit distracted, so we're just going to make sure they just set them on their desk. And then we realized that the kids were getting notifications over and over and over and over again. And we realized that maybe this wasn't the best. Once you put those phones away, and then you realize you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube and tell kids to just stay off their phones when they're addicted to them. So we are going 7 hours of phone-free time at school where they're undistracted. Now, I will tell you, when I showed up, the state also threw this in our laps in August. And without front-loading parents and without giving them the why, and without giving students the why, you're going to get pushback. But if we explain the why, and we go through these community meetings, and we tell parents, this is why we're doing what we're doing, and we told, so I sat here and I told every 9th through 12th grader, and I gave them the why, and every one of them was sitting, and they were engaged, they were quiet, they were listening, and they listened to everything that I said, and they're like, yeah. And I told them that, by the way, they know there's a problem. The kids know there's a problem. They're not going to self-correct, and they're not going to fix it themselves. They're going to rely on us, the adults, to fix this. So House Bill 96 came across everyone's desk in August, and what it says is that schools now have to ban phones from bell to bell, from the beginning of the day to the end of the day, starting January 1, 2026. Now, this happened awfully fast. There are now 17 states in the country that are banning phones this year, and I guarantee a whole lot more is going to ban them for the 26-27 school year. Building principals at Here Can't Stop, I've given them the autonomy to, for the first semester, start to restrict and start to pull back cell phones with the goal of when we come back at Christmas time, after Christmas, that there will be no more phones in the schools from the beginning to the end. They're going to have to keep them in their book bags, not on their person. Because like I have my phone in my pocket right now. If I think about it, is it buzzing? Because I think it may be vibrating because I may be getting a call. That's the distraction that we're talking about that we want to eliminate. The phones are going to be turned off and they're going to be in the kids' bags. I will tell you, there's a lot of schools that already do this. Some schools jumped right into this year. We elected to pull back a little bit and give it a little time to adjust. And then when the kids come back on January 1, there'll be no phones in the schools. But that's what we've promised for phone-free schools. So let's talk about this elephant in the room, because parents, I know what you're thinking, like, I want my kid to have a phone. I mean, what if there's an emergency, right? It's real, it's very real. Now, I will tell you the likelihood of it ever happening at your child's school is very, very, very small. But that doesn't make parents feel any better. So let's talk about this elephant in the room about what if there is an active threat. I will tell you that it's also written into the law that students must have access to their phones in the event of an active threat. I'm okay with that. The only thing that they're not going to do, they're not going to have access to their phone during the immediacy of the act. Because the last thing we want is our young people on their phones during an emergency. We want them attentive, we want them listening, we want them paying attention, we want them focused, we want them following directions. The last thing we want is them to be on their phones, possibly crying with a loved one, and that's not going to make them safer. As a parent, it may make you feel better that you're talking to your child, but you don't want to be talking to your child if they should be following instructions. So if you think back to, I think it was February, beginning of February, end of January of last year, there was a commercial airliner that landed in Canada, and because the runway was slick, it barrel rolled. The wings tore off, and it was upside down and came to a stop. Anybody remember that? It came to a stop. The tail end's on fire. They opened up the door. They threw out the ramp, the blow-up ramp, and people started sliding down. They also have a video out there of a stewardess who is inside the cabin. It's full of smoke. She's yelling at people Get off your phone and get out of the plane before it blows up. Get out of the plane. Adults have their phones out and they're videotaping. That's not what we want from our young people in the event of an emergency. We want them following directions, we want them being attentive, and we want them focused. Now, I will tell you, after the immediacy of the situation, yes, they're going to be allowed to get on their phones and call home, without a doubt. But during the immediacy of it, we cannot have them on their phones. And I think parents would agree with that. This is just a couple of things. Safety experts agree that students' cell phones during an emergency poses an additional safety risk, distracting students and complicating response efforts. Students might miss important instructions during an emergency because they are focused on their phones rather than listening to trained professionals guiding them. And I don't think we're going to have a problem with this, but if we need to go to yonder pouches or we go to cell phone lockers to keep kids off their phones for 7 hours, then we'll do that. But I do think our young people understand there's a problem. They do. I sat in here with students from Canton South, Perry, East Canton, and Sandy Valley, and when I told them, you have a problem and you know it with your cell phones, half of them were shaking their head, yeah, they know it. They're just not willing to fix it themselves and self-correct. So, now we're going to limit cell phones in schools.
My school, my state, banned the phones. Banned the phones. Today, all of my students, 100% of them, took notes in my class, did their assignment, asked for help when they got stuck, and turned it in. And then when they were done, they talked to each other. Was it this easy the whole time? I have been pulling my hair out for like 8 years. Has it been this easy of a solution the whole time?
Yeah. So step one, we're going to resist giving our students smartphones until they're 14. Step two, we're going to make every attempt we can to keep them off social media until they're 16. Step three, the schools, we promise to do our part and keep them off phones from the time they walk in to the time they finish up at the end of the day. Step four, this is where you come into play at. Step four is a little bit more challenging because this isn't about cell phones now. Well, it is and it isn't, but you'll see what I mean by this. We have overprotected our students in the real world, and we've underprotected them online. This is where I screwed up. I messed up with my son. I thought he was safer if he was upstairs, not knowing that I was actually putting him in more danger. But because he's upstairs and he's not running around with his friends out in the neighborhood, it's safer. I will tell you that kids are safer today than they've ever been in the history of this country. The problem is you see it on social media and they throw it right in your face, like all the dangers that are out there. Let me tell you, we used to do some crazy stuff when I was younger. Kids just don't do that anymore. They don't run around, they don't play out in the backyard, and they don't play down the street and play baseball or play football. Now some do, but the majority of kids are no longer doing that. What we've done is we've taken that play-based childhood and we've replaced it with a phone-based childhood. And in doing so, we're damaging our young people and their resiliency. We used to say, oh, kids will bounce back. Oh, don't worry, kids are resilient, they'll bounce back. They're not resilient as they used to be, not even close. My secretary, Sue Bear, over at my old high school, we used to joke around 2015, 2016, we used to joke, kids used to come in and complain all the time. Shocking, right? They used to come in and they'd start complaining and we'd say, don't be soft. Don't be soft. Well, we couldn't say that any longer to kids in 23, 24, 25, because then we'd be saying it to almost every kid out there. Don't be soft. We need them to be more resilient. So how has the lack of resiliency gotten to where it's at right now? This brings up step four. All right, we need to return to a more free play, and we need to return to a time where we give our kids more independence. Now, this is the scary thing, because social media would lead you to believe that there's a predator or someone's going to kidnap your kid at every turn. Like, I can't even let my kid go into the other aisle at the grocery store because I'm afraid somebody's going to grab him or her. That's not going to happen. But if you watch social media, it's happening 1,000 times a day. No, it's not. It's not. Your kids being upstairs and on their cell phones and on social media the whole time is 1,000 times more damaging and more dangerous than letting your kids walk through the neighborhood or leave with their friends. In our attempt to be the best parents we can be, I guess this is where I really screwed up. In my attempt to be the best parent I can be, my role changed from that of a mentor and a guide and a coach to that of a protector. That's what happened. I can share a story when I first started in administration, and if one of my kids' teachers did something that I didn't like, I'd shoot him an email, and with my title at the bottom, and that really got teachers to pay attention because, oh, this is a principal of an elementary school or a middle school or a high school. My wanting to be the best parent I could be, I turned into a protector. That's kind of what's happening with our parents now, and we have to take a step back and we have to do this because, when I learned how to ride a bike, I learned with my friends and I fell down, I scraped my elbows and so forth, but now kids learn to ride a bike. Mom or dad will put them on that bike and they'll buy them a helmet and they'll put on elbow pads and wrist guards and knee pads and they'll wrap them in bubble wrap and they'll run them alongside and they won't let them fall. We know that if you're going to grow up to be a well-rounded young person, you're going to have to fall and pick yourself back up. We're not doing that for our young people anymore. We're just not. So we have to take a step back. We have to stop bailing them out all the time. They can handle it. Now, there are situations that mom and dad have to get involved in. But you have to let them try first because we're unintentionally sending the message that, you can't handle this alone. Let me help you. And what we do in our attempts to be the best parents we can do, the best parents we can be, rather than making our kids stronger, we're actually making them weaker. And that's where we parents, myself, I have to take accountability for that, and I have to step back and I have to let my kids struggle, which, by the way, makes me very, very uncomfortable. But I have to step away and at least let them try to fix it. All right? So what we're going to start doing, and this is then we hand the ball off to the community, as staff in the buildings, we're going to start assigning activities, independent activities or independence activities for our students, age appropriate, but we're going to start sending activities home with the parents' permission, but without parent supervision. Things like ordering your own food at a restaurant, or taking the dog for a walk around the block, or running an errand, making a meal, making your own doctor's appointments, or contacting the college that you're attending if you're a junior in high school when things aren't going right. Help me out here. My sons, both of them, we'd go to a restaurant and we'd ask them what they want to eat, and they'd look at us and they're like, I want the chicken nuggets and french fries. And I would be like, hey, they want the chicken nuggets and french fries. You tell them, make eye contact, and tell them what you want to eat. Do you realize how challenging that is for our young people now? You parents that still have a landline, make your kids answer that phone. They don't want to answer the phone. There's now a college class, as ridiculous as it sounds, there's now a college class that has kids learning how to talk on the phone again. Like, how did we get here? This would happen at least once a week. I would have parents come into my office upset because their son and daughter made a bad choice and they don't know what they're doing. So they're crying, the kids are crying, and they're no longer able to discipline their kids the way they want to because out of fear that they're going to break them. Well, my kid did this in school and they made this bad choice, but I can't consequence them the way that I know that I should as a parent because they've talked about hurting themselves. And now I have to parent them completely different. Like, how did we get here? We have to teach them to be more independent. We have to teach them how to be more resilient. And the way that we do that is we get them to be more independent. Their self-worth and they value themselves, their self-value, it grows as they become more independent. We as parents, we got to stop robbing them of that opportunity because it makes us uncomfortable to see them struggle. We have to take a step back and let them do this. So what we do is we're going to start sending home these activities where they can be more independent. And then as parents and community, you are then going to grab a hold of that and come up with your own activities where I can let them be more independent. For example, my guidance counselor at my old high school, who teamed up with me through a lot of this, through the suicide contagion and so forth, she's got 2 little girls, and she lets them walk around the block. Her and a neighbor girl, they walk around the block. All of a sudden, she's got one of her sink set clogged. She gets the snake, and before she fixes it, she shows her daughter how to do it, and then they end up going to every sink in the house and unplugging it. Not that they were all plugged, but they were then cleaning out all the drains in the house. Just being more independent. They pull up through a drive-through, she'll roll their window down, and they have to speak in the drive-through window loud enough for the person to hear them, and they have to order their own food. Those little things, my speech pathologist at my old high school had her son mowing the lawn because they have a push mower. She was like, get out there and mow it. He's just a little guy, and he's out there pushing it. But she goes, when he came back in, he was beaming. Mom, Dad, I mowed the lawn. Rather than doing it for them. Here's the thing, we're creative as parents. We can think of things that we can do to give our kids, but we have to be intentional. We have to look for things that they can do independently. Even if they struggle, embrace it. So this is something else I'm going to share with you. Do not intervene when they start to struggle. Now, if they can't get it and they need help, sure. But don't jump in too quickly. Let them struggle. Here's what I want to share with parents. We have to tell our young people, they need to embrace the struggle. So many times now our young people, as soon as they come to a problem that they can't solve, and that could literally be, say, let's say a math problem that they can't solve, or let's say it's a problem with a girlfriend, or a problem with a teacher, or a coach, rather than jumping in, remind them to embrace the struggle. Allow them time to work the problem and try to solve it, because that's where real self-esteem, self-worth, and pride is going to come from. And also, there's a byproduct of this, and I need to share with you parents this as well. If you let them start to solve their own problems and be more independent, you as a parent can start to breathe a little easier. For those of you that have had young people that have driven, and the first time they take the car out, or the first week or whatever, and they start driving, one of the most nerve-wracking moments, and you can't go to sleep until they're home. And then, Life 360. Let me tell you, parents, Life 360 is killing us. The way that we monitor our young people, and how's he doing? How fast is he driving? How's he doing this? How's he doing that? Our level of anxiety goes up, our blood pressure goes up. So we have to do, for our own good, we have to take a step back. One of the byproducts of letting them solve their own problems is that we begin to be able to start to relax. So like after they start driving and you can't go to sleep until you hear the garage door go up and then you know they're home. But after they do that for a while, now you get to ease into it a little bit and you get to relax a little bit more. That's the byproduct of letting our kids be more independent, especially when they're little. They can do it. We've just taken it away from them. I took it away from my son. You'll love this one. You'll love this one.
What are you? Therapist? No. What are you doing here?
I'm really sorry. I was going to indulge you guys. I'm super sorry.
If your dad knows you're out here doing that, I will call him right now.
Yeah, he does know.
I felt that.
What's the hold up? I've been caught!
Is that your dad?
Yeah.
He was being on Disney with you?
Yeah, he says it's a core childhood memory and he wants to be a part of it.
Okay.
Dad!
I
He gets it. Now, I don't know if there should be ding dong ditching, but I'm not against that. He's not on his phone. This young man's not on his phone. In his bedroom, safe. He's out experiencing it. All right? So, as we move through this, and I'll share with you some of what the school's going to do too, and this is going to be in January. We're going to start building a profile of a wildcat, and it's going to be from grades K to 12. And by the time a student leaves a particular grade, what do we want them to be able to do? Sure, academics, we got that nailed down. But in terms of independence, what do we want them to do? I had mentioned before, like some of our young people who are taking CCP classes, we see this a lot. Some of our young people that are taking CCP classes will fall behind, or they'll get an activity or an assignment that they don't understand, and they will not reach out to the college professor. They'll put their head in the sand, and they'll just hope that it goes away. You can just imagine how that turns out. And then they get to the end of the semester, they failed the class because they haven't attended for 4.5 weeks because there was a question they had and they couldn't reach out to the professor because they didn't want to contact him because they were afraid to. I can't. Well, then you shouldn't be in CCP classes. But yeah, they should. But we have to coach them to be more independent. So those are the types of things, making your own doctor's appointments or dentist appointments, or those types of things that kids should be able to do at certain stages of their life. It's going to be elementary, it's going to be at the middle school, it's going to be at the high school. But it's going to be what a child should be able to do, or a student should be able to do when they hit different milestones. All right? Again, the 4 steps. No smartphones before 14, no social media until 16, no phones in schools, and let's get back to more free play and letting the kids be more independent. Which for parents, it's tough, I'm telling you. It makes us uncomfortable, it scares us to death, but we have to step away. We have to let our kids try to solve their own problems. What can you do right now? Right now, what if you haven't given them a phone yet? Don't. No smartphones until 14. If they need a phone, and this is another thing. This, by the way, this is how my wife and I sold it to ourselves when we get our kids a phone. Well, you know, they're in sports. They need to get a hold of us. Well, then get them a flip phone. Something that doesn't have internet access. Give them, if the real reason to give them a phone is so that they can call you or contact you or vice versa, a flip phone works just fine. And then don't budge. Do not budge. And then begin assigning tasks to your child to do independent of you. But what if you have given them a cell phone? How do you put that toothpaste back in the tube? If you've already given them a phone, you must set limits tonight. Renegotiate immediately. Don't wait until the end of the semester. Start to renegotiate tonight. And this is what it sounds like. Honey, come here, sit down. By the way, don't do this when they've done something wrong. You got to do it when the time is right and they're in a good mood. You sit them down and say, listen, we know there are certain situations with your phone. We know phones are not healthy, and you know they're not healthy for you. Studies, without a shadow of a doubt, they have shown they have resounding effects on a young person's mental health, and they know it as well. So we're going to renegotiate. We're going to set new parameters, and if you're okay with them, you get to keep your phone. But if you don't want these new parameters, then I'm going to turn off your phone. It's going to be a BRIK starting tonight. Every kid in the world will be like, don't take my phone, let's renegotiate. It starts immediately. No smartphones at night, ever, for them. You cannot allow them to take their phones to bed with them. They plug it in the bedroom, in your bedroom, or in the bathroom, your bathroom, away from them. They will tell, studies will show you that a student spends most of their time on their phone between the hours of midnight and 4 a.m. when you think they're sleeping. Right? They're nice and quiet. No. They're awake. So then we wonder why at the high school we have kids coming in and they look like zombies because they've been up all night. And I can tell you, I'll look at the kids and say, you get to keep your phone at night, don't you? Yeah. Or if I have a parent come in and they're complaining because Johnny keeps falling asleep in class, they're taking their phone to bed at night, aren't they? Yeah, but you know, don't let them take their phones to bed, ever. Sleep deprivation does not help with anxiety and depression. It adds to it. They need to get to bed. And for that matter, they need to be off the phone for about an hour before they go to bed. So if their bedtime is, let's say, 10 o'clock for high school kids, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, get the phone plugged in an hour before they go to bed. It'll make it a lot easier for them to go to sleep. I took my son's phone in 17, 18 during the suicide contagion, and I made him start plugging it in. And I wake up pretty early. I get up around 4:30 in the morning, and I'm brushing my teeth, and his phone's beside me, and it's lighting up. He's getting notifications from Snapchat from his buddies at 4:30 in the morning. Let me tell you, those kids have not woken up. They haven't gone to bed yet. And I'm just sitting there, and I'm just like, you gotta be kidding me. They're still up on their phones, and we wonder why they're tired during the day. We wonder why Generation Z sleeps in until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Do you know what I'm talking about? They sleep in until 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And then their sleep cycle's all messed up. Don't let them take their phones to bed. Set restrictions. Learn how to control the settings. It's on Wait Until 8th. There's phone fundamentals. It'll show you how to walk you through and set those parameters. But also understand this, our kids are really, really smart. Even if you set up those parameters, which makes it much more difficult, they will try to get on. There's YouTube channel. All they have to do is go to YouTube. So they have to have the rules set in place that, listen, I get to check your phone whenever I want. This privacy, well, I'm giving my kids privacy. No, that's my phone. I pay for it. You simply borrow it. Whenever I want to see your phone, you must give me the code immediately. Well, then I turn it off. Okay, don't do that. Whenever you get asked to see their phone, they have to turn it over, and you get to see if they have apps on their phone that aren't supposed to be on Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, those types of things. Also, you're gonna have to stay on top of it as well, because you know they have calculator apps now that kids, you can open up a calculator, they'll put in a code in the calculator, and it'll open up to a whole nother screen, and they can hide all their apps inside of the calculator setting, inside of the calculator app. So wait till 8th will also tell you how to detect those apps, those fake apps that are on there. Okay? Establish phone-free times at home and study zones. No scrolling. Here's a great thing about studying too, is that you'll send Jennifer into the room and she's supposed to be studying, and she studies for 5 minutes, and then her phone lights up, and then she whips out her phone and she starts looking on Instagram, and before you know it, it's 55 minutes later, and she's still on Instagram. So then she comes out, and you as a parent, you're like, oh, you've been studying so hard. Do you need a snack? She studied for 5 minutes. 55 minutes was wasted on TikTok. If you've ever gone down that rabbit hole, we all have, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Don't let them take their phones with them when they're studying. It's not gonna help. Well, I like to listen to music. Stop it. That's ridiculous. Kids also are under the belief that if I listen to music, I study better. No, you don't. No, you don't. You've just grown accustomed to that. Sitting up tall in a hardback chair on a well-lighted desk or a table and studying is the most effective way to do it. Somehow, slouching down so their brains go into their butt with AirPods in and listening to music, somehow we've convinced ourselves that our kids can study like that. Don't let them do it. What can you do right now? You can join this BRIK team. I'm going to show you a QR code that if you want to join, you can grab one of our committees. We've already had our first meeting. We're just setting them up right now, but we're ready to push this as we go. Read The Anxious Generation. Raise your hand if you've heard of that book. It's a game changer, talking about drinking the Kool-Aid. That book. So here's the thing too, is when we were going through this in 2017, 2018, and I was on this crusade with mental health, I was like, man, I feel like my calling is to do something bigger. And then I read The Anxious Generation, and Dr. Jonathan Haidt beat me to it. He got it. I almost wrecked my car. I was listening to it. I wasn't reading the book in my car. I was listening to it. And I always make this joke, I almost wrecked my car multiple times because what they said hit home so hard. I had to stop it, rewind it, listen to it, stop it, rewind it, listen to it, because what he was saying just hit every button we needed. Talk to your neighbors, talk to your kids as friends, as parents, and band together. What can you do right now? If you can't join the BRIK team, you can start talking to your neighbors at football games, at basketball games, at band camp, or at band practices. Talk to them and band together and come together and say, you know what, the 8 of us, we're not getting our kids smartphones. The last video I want to show you kind of encapsulates everything that we've been talking about tonight. And you're like, oh, some of this is extreme. No, it's not. Some of you have experienced this. But there is hope out there. We're talking about putting the toothpaste back in the tube. It's not an easy thing to do, but